Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance, and today I am so excited to introduce American contemporary dancer, choreographer, filmmaker and artist, Juel D Lane. Juel made history in 2012 as the first local and independent Black choreographer to have his work commissioned by the Atlanta Ballet and was included in Dance Magazine's 25 to watch list, which is quite an achievement, I have to say, particularly for such a young artist. I'm really excited to have a chat. Juel, hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So you're currently in North Carolina, is that right?
Yes, I'm in North Carolina right now, and I'm teaching at North Carolina School of the Arts summer session. And what it is just a session for upcoming dancers or pre-professional dancers who want to have training, and they actually come here and they get contemporary ballet, composition, rep, and all of those things.
So we'll have to add teacher to that long introduction of your different skills.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, let's start at the beginning, Juel. Tell us about growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, and how old were you, and why did you take up dance in the first place?
Yeah, I actually started dancing because I just had a lot of energy growing up, and some of my favorite shows were Fame. I actually thought I was the character Leroy on the show, so I was inspired by Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, and as I got older, I had noticed that I had a lot of anxiety, which most teens do, and I was very shy and very quiet, and I was painfully shy, and so the one thing that actually got me comfortable was this idea of moving my body. And so when I went to high school, I actually went to Tri-Cities High School, which is a performing arts high school in Atlanta. And my teachers, Dawn Atsom and Freddie Hendricks, they were very instrumental in bringing this artist out of me. And it was there when I got probably the appetite to understand the arts and really know that this was something that I wanted to do. So from there, I actually ended up going to North Carolina School of the Arts, and I majored in contemporary dance. Once I graduated from there, I actually moved to New York, and I danced with the Ronald K. Brown Evidence Company for about 6 years. And in addition to that, I was also dancing with Camille A. Brown and dancers as well. So that's just like a little skimming the surface.
That is quite the skim of quite a journey. I'm interested. I've talked before in this show about anxiety that dancers experience, and I also feel very quite anxious, and often I can be quite shy, which is weird for someone who hosts a podcast show. But I'm interested how you felt that dance really helped you in the severe anxiety that you had as a child. What was it about dance that felt really gave you a way of being able to sort of, I guess, move beyond that, if you have, or?
Yeah, one of the things that I really noticed is that when I was in the presence of performing, whether it was acting or just simply moving my body, I kind of noticed that I wasn't shy. And that's when I started to kind of understand that, there's a language in movement without actually saying words. And eventually, as the years progressed, I kind of noticed that I kind of got out of my shell, and I was able to actually just talk and just be myself, because the thing about it, and I always say this, the world has a way of telling you what you are before you actually know who you are. And so dealing with all of those things, just trying to figure out, is it okay for me to actually dance? Am I supposed to be doing this at the moment? So all of those things took a factor in that. But the one thing that actually made the most sense and made me feel extremely comfortable was when I was on the stage.
And was there a moment, or growing up, often male dancers talk about the challenges that they have, even just for being a male aspiring young dancer. How was that for you when you were growing up in Georgia, in Atlanta?
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is that I always thought that men were not supposed to dance because, they were automatically label you as gay and all of those things. And so I just knew it wasn't right. But at the same token, I grew up on a show called Fame, and the lead character was a male. And so in the back of my head, I always knew that, I can do this, but I just don't know if I have the confidence to actually pursue it. So when I got into high school, one of the beautiful things about going to performing arts high school is that you have people that are around you who are just like you, who want to dance, and and then you have a male teacher who is actually pushing that out of you. So Freddie Hendricks was just a really wonderful example of just letting me be free, and not only just me, but for everybody who actually studied under him. And so he was my drama teacher at the time, and so he knew that this was something that I was really passionate about. But it was just a matter of just saying, how can I make this young man come to the light and really say, hey, you can do this as a career. And so I'm just always thankful just for him.
And was there a moment, or was it literally watching that fabulous show Fame? Did you have a moment where you thought, I would love to do this as a full-time career, and how can I make that work? Or was there a moment for you, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the moment came for me probably in my 6-year-old self is when I used to cut up my leg warmers out of socks and everything, and I would make these crazy kind of costumes, and I knew I wanted to do this. I just didn't have the confidence to do it. And I guess at that time when I was 7 years old, I really didn't understand all of the context that was in the show. But the one thing that stood out to me was just that this idea of this man soaring across my TV screen, and it was something really captivating about that. And as I got older, I always said that I would love to do this. I would love to be like a background dancer, but how do I do it? How do I get into it? So yeah.
So when you graduated from the North Carolina School of the Arts, I think you focused there on contemporary dance. Tell me, what was your experience going into the professional dance industry after school?
Well, I actually got my first job with a company called Carol Endorsement and Dancers, and I got that right after school. And so I was really thankful for that. I danced with her for about a year, and making the big move up to New York was already scary in itself. So it was kind of like, oh my God, I got this job, I don't have a place to really stay. And so I kind of couch surfed, with some friends, and I danced with her for about a year. And then shortly after that year, once you get a taste of New York at the age of 22, it's kind of like you're this kid in this candy shop, oh my goodness, there's so many choreographers that I really want to work with. There's so many choreographers that I actually studied while I was back in school. And so it wasn't until my friend Camille Brown had told me about Ron Brown, and he had auditions coming up, and he was looking for a male, and she said, you should just go. And I went, and just by the grace of God, I actually got into the company. And from then, just dancing with him for about 6 years completely changed my whole trajectory. And not only was I thankful to be in his company, but I was just really happy to be a part of something that was essentially his legacy.
So tell me about, for those perhaps over here in the UK or Europe who don't know too much about the company, tell us about the company and why over that 6-year period for you it was such an important experience in your life.
Yeah. Well, the name of the company is called Ronald K. Brown Evidence, and I was with them for about 6 years. And his work is deeply embedded in the African diaspora. And he uses a lot of sabar, which is a Senegalese style of street dancing, but he also fuses it with contemporary. And for me, it changed my life because not only did I develop long-lasting friendships and essentially a family, but it was great to study under a Black gay male. And so seeing this man in power and knowing that he can access his power and pretty much just, you know, change the kind of narrative for contemporary dance in itself was just really dope.
Yeah. Well, you described this incredible, for me, I can just imagine you, as you say, your early 20s, you're in New York, you're working with this incredible choreographer, having this great experience that's impacting you quite personally. How did you move on from that, and what did you take with you? And what was your next step?
One of the things I took for me is probably like a sense of leadership. And after my 6 years was up, I kind of told myself, like, hey, there are so many other things that you want to do, and like there's so many other goals and dreams that you have. And I knew one of the things is that I wanted to get into choreography, and I also wanted to go back into a little bit of theater, just a little bit of that. And I kept telling myself, I was like, well, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? So it was kind of hard because, like, you know, you're leaving this amazing company, but at the same token, I was like, there are things that I want to do. There are things that I've been burning to do. So let me just take that leap of faith. And sometimes taking a leap of faith is scary. And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do, like, you know, for money? Like, what's going to happen now? But I think the thing that I learned from him is that idea of leadership and just kind of reclaiming your power and just really saying, let me do what I need to do for myself as an artist.
And tell me about becoming a choreographer, or, you know, that drive or the inspiration to create your own work. Where did that come from, and what were you looking to say or to create? Right.
Being a choreographer is super awesome, in my opinion. And I always tell people that I'm still like on this journey. I guess one of the things that was really enlightening for me as a choreographer is that I was able to create the kind of work that I wanted to do for myself. And in the beginning of my career, I always felt like it was a need for me to try to be fierce or try to do all these wild tricks and all these kind of things, because I felt like that's how I'm going to get people's attention. But it wasn't until I started putting like my personal stories in my work. And once I started to get a gist of that, that's when my choreography started to really come alive. So.
And how do you describe your choreographic language or your movement language?
I would describe my language as, I would always say fast, because I like to move fast. It's always like that hyperactive boy still lives in me, and he still comes out, and he radiates. So it's a fusion of like West African, it's a little bit of hip hop. There's a little bit of this kind of language that I call ugly movements, and the reason why I say that, because sometimes the movements that we consider not pretty, or that's not really considered dance, I kind of take those things and kind of make it myself and figure out how can I morph it into the language that I want to say.
And what's your process for creating work? Do you work with yourself and create an idea, or do you work with your dancers? Tell me about how you create.
Most of the times, my work, I usually get commissioned, so I don't have a company per se, which I have like I tell people all the time, I have no desire to get a company.
Okay, why not?
I like the idea of just, meeting dancers and going different places. And sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll get into a space with some dancers that I've never met in my life. And I try to say, let me get inspired. Let me see how they move. Let me see what they want to say. So I get a feel of how they move, and then I kind of take them into my world. And so sometimes it's just a matter of me just teaching like a simple phrase, or I may have a piece of music and I may only have 2 counts of 8, and I kind of go off of that. And so I always like to make the process very organic, or I give myself permission to say, hey, just play in the space, and you don't have to be perfect. So that's initially how we start. And sometimes my process can be crazy, and people will be tired and sore, but I think that's just like a testament of how I like to move. So.
And that fast pace you mentioned before.
Fast tempo, but not everything is fast. It's just like, I like different little intricacies. There are some slow moments. I always tell people I'm not always fast.
And your work covers political concepts, gender roles, LGBTQ issues, and you mentioned tackling some of your own life experiences. That's quite a topical and necessary subject matters to be covering. Tell me about why you cover these and what is so important to you.
Well, the reason why I really tackle LGBT issues because I am gay. I'm a Black male, and I always feel like it's important for people to see themselves. So if there's somebody coming up behind me, I want them to be able to say, hey, I'm gay too, and this story is very similar to me. And I used to kind of shy away from those things, but again, when I put my personal stories in play, they make the most sense for me. But I also wanted to be a voice. Even if people come and see my work and they're not clear on what it is, or they may not understand everything, I want them to leave the theater having conversations and being able to find something that relates to them. And I just think it's important because in the world that we live in, everything is not always perfect. But I think we need stories. I think we need narratives to really kind of drive, or add to the conversation that's happening in the world.
Absolutely. And as you say, even to inspire or spark a conversation between the audience themselves as a result of the work is such a great and necessary thing in this day and age. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, I have to say. I'm interested in the work that you're doing with the companies. You talk about your commissioned work. And do you get given a subject matter, or are you able to bring those subjects with you? Tell me how that works for you.
Well, usually commissions work where a company or a school may hire you, and they never really give you a subject title. I think if people know your work, they just want you to be able to create in the space. So I always kind of come with different ideas. And again, it all depends on who I'm choreographing for, what is it that I want to say. And sometimes I may not have those ideas right away, and they may come when I'm in the space itself. So that's usually how it works. And with commissions, sometimes you're given 3 weeks, you may be given a week. It just depends on what you do in that space and how creative you can be and how practical and strategic you can be. But at the same time, also making sure that your voice is being heard and being extremely clear.
And you've worked, or you've been invited by some leading companies. Tell me about some of the commissions that you've had recently.
Sure. I have a piece that's touring right now with the second company of Alvin, Ailey American Dance Theater, and it's called Touch and Agree. And that particular piece is very close to me because that's one of the pieces that really talks about my life, and it's divided in 4 sections, and it really kind of pans the scope of LGBT. I have another piece that is with Dallas Black Dance Theater. They're actually on tour, and it's called How to Kill a Ghost. And that piece is actually about a breakup that I actually went through. I was in a relationship with this guy for about 6 months. And now in that 6 months, I thought it felt like 12 years, and I was like, it was only 6 months, and
12 good years.
It was so,
12 good years.
No. The relationship was only 6 months, but it felt like I was in there for like 12 years because we moved so fast in the relationship. But when the relationship dissolved, I had the need to kind of hold on tight, and I kept asking myself, like, I'm no longer associated with this man. Why am I holding on tight to him? And I felt like it was a ghost that was within me that I could not get rid of. And so that's why I called the piece How to Kill a Ghost. My first piece that I did was on Atlanta Ballet. It was called Moments of Dis, D-I-S. And I was using the prefix dis because it was a idea of just not repeating the same patterns, like whether it was discombobulated, disconnected, and things of that nature. And that was just about life in general, because I was at a point where I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. So, and
you make films as well, or you work on film projects. Tell me about the films that you have been working on, or the projects that you're currently working on in that space.
Well, I don't have any projects at the moment, but I do have some films that are online. If I'm being completely honest, which I am trying to get back into that. So some films are coming soon. But one of the first films that I actually did, it was called Just Another Day, and that was a film just about how we move every day, how we get up in the morning, how we brush our teeth, how we go to the store, how we walk through the airport. I wanted to play on like our natural rhythms. I always get into conversation with people who say, "Oh, I don't dance. That's not my thing. I don't know how to do that." But I'm like, the moment you wake up, there's a constant rhythm that's happening. So there's a constant rhythm when you're putting on like your clothes. So movement is definitely at the core of life.
Absolutely.
But people are not always aware of that. So that was my first film. And so after that, I had some other films. So yeah, but
and
that's the one I'm really proud of.
And you mentioned, and I love that idea of, every person every day when they wake up has this movement. And when you were talking about that, it made me think of, one's own heartbeat and your pulse and the blood that circulates within having a rhythm. It's really quite visceral, actually, isn't it? I wanted to ask you as well about, you mentioned when we first started talking that you're currently teaching, Yes. How are you finding, are you a natural teacher? Do you enjoy it? And are you finding you're passing on the lessons or some other things which you were taught when you were studying?
I hope I'm teaching good material. I'm pretty sure that I'm natural. I hope that I'm natural. One of the things that I do enjoy about teaching is that I get to go back to myself when I was like maybe 15 or maybe 17, and like some of the things that I necessarily didn't get. So I'm in the position of power to actually give those things to students. And I'll try to be very honest with students. And I like teaching because teaching, it also inspires me, and it gives me a reflection of like, oh, okay, it helps me practice patience. And I know that somebody did it for me. They took their time to try to mold me. So it's only right for me to do that. And I actually enjoy teaching. And so that's another thing too. Like I actually love being in the classroom, being able to break things down, being able to have discussions about the body, about alignment. And for the most part, I teach contemporary. And so I kind of fuse in my own style, but I make it very accessible where the actual student can get something from the studio practice.
And your experience with this next generation of young dancers, how do you sort of look back and think, and look into the classroom and think, how different is the dance world that they're going to move into that you have been building a career in over the years? What sort of differences of challenges do you think that they have to what you had before, or do you think it's still the same?
I think in some sense it's still the same, but I would say with this particular generation, there's this, sometimes there's this sense of entitlement, or they want to know it like in 5 minutes and be ready to go. And it's like, it takes a little longer than that. And so I would say that there's patience, and sometimes it usually hurts me when I visit performing arts schools and I see dancers who have been training for so long, and then once they graduate, they say they don't want to dance, and I'm just like, oh no, like, what happened? And I think a lot of that, it goes to the teachers, and really make sure the teachers are inspiring and really keeping that passion going, because once you lose it, it's like, that's it. And so that's probably the biggest difference that I've noticed, because I know when I was coming up, it was all about, I wanted to be in a company, I wanted to dance, I don't care where I was going to make a career out of it. And I think sometimes this generation don't feel like they can make a career out of it, but I think you can. I think it just depends on the people that you have around you, the teachers that are motivating you. And so that's what I really try to strive in the classroom, is try to motivate them and really try to ask the tough questions and really try to make sure that they are being able to like go see performances and seeing like the different possibilities, and also being able to see a mirror of themselves too is very helpful. So
it's interesting because with social media now, there's so much access to such a huge and a global landscape of companies, which I think particularly when I was young, many years ago, dear God, you didn't even know that there was this, rafts of companies out there where you could have an incredible career, and you could really, move or build it and change, and different styles. And I think the young dancers now, if they do have someone like yourself to motivate them, there is far more information for them nowadays than I think perhaps before, through social media. Which also brings its own challenges for the young dancers, I think.
That is very true too, because I think quite honestly, I think there's some good things to social media and there's some bad things. I think the good thing is that sometimes people are hired off of their social media, and so I think that's really great, and it's also a good way to just access what's going on in the world. But then the downside to that is sometimes people post stuff and it's for show, and I always question, like, well, can you do that in real life? Like, like, is this what you really want to do? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting world for the next generation. I'm interested. The industry has been changing. There's so much going on in the dance industry at the moment. What do you you've had your experience. You mentioned earlier, you were a young black gay dancer from Atlanta, Georgia, and you've built this incredible career. But what would you like to see, or do you feel would be beneficial for the next generation to change within the industry, if you feel there needs to be change at all?
I would probably just say more visibility of teachers teaching true dance and really teaching true fundamentals, and just really knowing what you're going to say. And I say this all the time, and I always question myself as well. It's almost like your life experiences are so valuable to the dancer that is coming up. But at the same token, you want to make sure that you're getting vital information, that you know what you're talking about. You have experienced these things, because it's nothing like being in a classroom with someone who's never done all these things, and they're trying to teach the next generation. So it's almost like you learn by experience. So I guess that's one of the things. And I'll go back to what I said before, just patience. I think that, the generation just have to have patience and research as well,
to learn their craft and learn the history. And absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So you mentioned about patience and the learning. Are there are there certain sets of advice that you would give to the younger version of yourself, to really motivate? Do you have any words that you use a lot to help motivate, or you would love to have or had said to you when you were younger that you would want to pass on?
Sure. One of the things I would say is just make sure that you're fully present, and make sure when you're in the room you have something to say. And I say that because you can miss an opportunity, and by being fully present, it's just being fully aware, fully engaged on what the teacher is giving you, or whether you're not in class or you're actually performing. Like just being very truthful and being able to hold the space truthfully. That's what I would say.
That's absolutely wonderful words. And tell me, what's next for you, Juel? What's on the horizon?
What is next for me? Well, there's a company that I've been so graciously been dancing with for a few years, and that is Camille A. Brown and Dancers. She is the choreographer. She just choreographs for Jesus Christ Superstar, and she's also the choreographer for Once on This Island on Broadway. And so she has a company, and I typically work with her on and off, and we have some shows coming up, so I'm really excited about that. Also, I'll be setting a new choreographic work for North Carolina School of the Arts this fall, and that's it right now. I have some more things that are brewing, and I'm just super excited about the path that I'm on, and just trying to stay focused.
That sounds like a very busy days and a great horizon for you to be looking at. It's, you're teacher, filmmaker, dancer, choreographer, artist. My goodness, it's wonderful to have so many
the sky is the limit. That's what I tell myself.
Oh, absolutely. And thankfully we live in a time where you don't have to fit into a box, and you can be as many different versions and have so many different outlets. It's fantastic to see. It's been so wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much, Juel, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
And for the listeners, you must check out what I think is a really beautiful website, actually, of Juel's. It's Juel D Lane, JUELDLANE.com, which I think has got some really beautiful photos as well. And I think it really conveys a lot of personality, I have to say. It's beautiful. And check out the social media as well for Juel. Thank you so much, Juel.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.